in the latter part of 1954 and early 1955, my brother Alden had organized an idea he had on a submersible drilling rig. And he had perfected that and sold 51% of that idea to the Murphy Corporation out of El Dorado, Arkansas, and the other 49% to the public, to the general public, making it a public investor-owned company called ODECO, Ocean Drilling Exploration. In the meantime, while he was doing that, he had a naval background and therefore had an idea that what had been being used in the offshore industry, which was not very much of an industry, it was very close onshore, had an idea that what we had been using, which were surplus military vessels or a tug and a barge or something like that, not very seaworthy nor very well planned or designed for servicing the oil and gas industry. He thought that a forward pilot house type vessel made more sense than a stern pilot house vessel, which was then the idea. He conveyed that idea to American Marine Corporation, and they perfected the idea in the form of a set of plans for a vessel that was eventually going to be the first forward pilot house vessel in the industry, called the Ebb Tide. He had put together a group of about 10 investors who put up a few dollars to build that vessel, and they scrounged around and used spare parts and used equipment and used pilot house and used engines and so forth. Anyway, it emerged as the first one and a prototype of what was later to become the standard of the industry, the forward pilot house vessel. It turned out that he could not continue to participate in that, or for a number of reasons. One was because of the lack of funds on the part of all of them, and secondly because being with ODECO, that would have challenged his time and abilities and the appearances of conflicts. So he relinquished all of his interest in that operation. I forgot to mention another of my brothers who was the lawyer had done all the legal work, and they organized a company called Tidewater Marine Service Corporation, which owned the Ebb Tide. That was a Louisiana corporation. They built that first vessel and then a second one called the Riptide. In organizing ODECO, one of the people who was an investor but was also an investment banker type named Birch Williams had been with Murphy, and he envisioned much grander things in the way of a possible new venture of someone publicly owned and so forth. Birch put his ideas into motion, and they approached me as about the third or fourth person they had approached to organize this and to start it on some level. I agreed in March of 1956 to leave Richardson and Bass, the job that I had originally, and join this small group to organize what then became Tidewater Marine Service Inc., a Delaware corporation, and the company that was going to exist totally with public funds, public investor funds. $485,000 was raised mostly in the St. Louis, Missouri community by Birch Williams and the rest of us. And that started the company. Latter part of 1957, we had 12 vessels in service. And one morning I walked out to the dock in Morganton, Berwick, Louisiana, and 7 of those were tied to the dock, which, as I said, was my first experience with the cycles of the industry. At any rate, in early 1958, we decided that the only other place in the world where there was drilling in the water was on Lake Maracaibo in Venezuela. So Birch Williams and I went down there to take a look at it. And sure enough, there was drilling on the lake in about 100 feet of water. There were 1 or 2 broken down operators on the lake. We analyzed it and decided it was worth a shot. It became our first international operation. March 1st, 1958, we acquired a small company on the lake which had management, and we began exposing Tidewater there in a local company called Samarco. And it happened to coincide with the time when the Venezuelan government began opening up their production areas on Lake Maracaibo to other than Creole, Shell, and Mini Grande, which is Exxon, Shell, and Gulf Oil. And therefore, a few independents came in, Sun Oil Company, Phillips, several others. So there was going to apparently be a lot of business. We concentrated there in the crew boat business and started building 40 and 50 footers in Patterson, Louisiana at Seward Seacraft. And fortunately, we finally built that fleet up to almost 70 vessels on Lake Maracaibo. We were by far the dominant factor, the dominant marine operator on the lake. It took a while to gain confidence for the old customers to understand what a service company was, and that you had both the desire, the ability, and the financial ability to support their operations. Prior to that, the concept was for them to own their own equipment, which was a big consumer of cash, but not something that they particularly wanted to do. It was a necessity for their business. So as a few service companies developed some reputable confidence in what they did, they were accepted better and better as time went on. And that, of course, afforded us opportunities for growth and expansion and so forth. After Venezuela, we started looking at Trinidad and got some equipment going there, and then the North Sea, and then other parts of the world. Nigeria, West Africa, Australia, the Mediterranean, the Middle East, where over the next several years we found ourselves as the largest operator of marine equipment for the offshore industry in the world by far. And we had management and equipment and operating bases all over the world where anything was happening in the water in looking for oil and gas.